Welcome back to the Freemouse MC. We're today here with the Yamaha FZ6. And this is a beautiful machine, and today we're discussing if you want a 600cc Supersport, why maybe you should consider this as an alternative. This bike has a 600cc engine and 95 horsepower, which is really interesting because this makes this bike possible to be detuned to the A2 standard, so you can make this bike A2 compliant. It has 61 Newton meters of torque and all that in a 216 kilo package. All in all, this bike is basically like a pizza. Yamaha took all the parts they had laying around and stuffed it on this bike to kind of make it affordable. So you have preload adjustable suspension in the rear and basically no adjustability in the upside right suspension. But still, for someone who wants a bike to ride on the street, this maybe could be a really good deal. So let's hear from Dimitri, the owner of this machine, who gave it to me for the day, why he bought the machine and what he's done with it so far.
Hello, thank you for having me actually. This bike is a bike. It was, this specific model was dropped a few times because, it's old. So other than that, I mean, it's a bike that fits most of my boxes. So long service intervals, available parts, and fuel injected. Of course, throttle not by wire, but throttle by cable, because I actually very much like the feedback you get from carbureted systems, and you get a bit less issues with that. Here, being fuel injected, if you go in mountains, stuff like that, it's not a big deal. It just tunes its mixture and you're fine. With carbureted bike, it's a different story.
Yeah, and also the whole issue with like cleaning the carburetors regularly and all that stuff. And one question, what did you pay for this motorcycle on the used market? Because I think that's really an interesting factor when considering this machine.
Back last year when I got this one, I paid about 2,000 euros.
Okay.
But it needed some work, and of course it doesn't look pretty. I mean, it was dropped, so I did a lot of undoing actually around the way it was put back together, but I'm happy it's technically sound, and being cheap and being already dropped, I don't care if I drop it. So it's fine for me.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good base. You know, you have a bike that you can ride where you don't care about it that much. And I looked a bit online, and these bikes tend to go for 2 to 5 grand depending on their condition. And let's see how the thing rides. So how is it to sit on this motorcycle? Because in a comparison to 600 Supersport, this is more comfortable, which now sounds boring. I get it, you want a 600, but it is a lot more comfortable most likely, and for street usability a lot better. The seat height is 79.5 centimeters high. I'm for reference 6'5" or 1 meter 96 centimeters, so I'm a bit of a taller individual. And to be honest, this bike feels quite comfortable from how you sit on it. The handlebars feel very narrow. You have to feel a bit if you're a bit of a broader individual, if you can like grab them properly and not have like weird inverted arms. But apart from that, it feels very comfortable, but still slightly lean forward. Like a Harley rider would say this is uncomfortable, but for a sports bike rider, this is a couch. So really nice in that regard. So let's take the bike for a spin. As I earlier mentioned, that this could be a really good option if you want to get a 4-cylinder 600 Supersport. This bike actually shares many engine components with the Yamaha R6. I think it's basically a detuned version of the same engine with 95 horsepower instead. And that now sounds like a bad thing, but I really feel like 95 horsepower is kind of the sweet spot for street riding, so let's see if that's the case. You definitely have some passing power in this machine, and the bike is also relatively quick. Typical 4-cylinder stuff. As soon as you get a bit higher in the revs, the bike gets going, but it's not completely dead below 7,000. Like, you can still charge forward to overtake vehicles, so that's nice. And the very narrow profile of the bike down low can have some advantages. Like the bike is really as wide as the tank is. It doesn't get wider below. Because earlier I was following Dimitri, and and he went between a curb and a transporter, and it was all fitting, and the bottom of my interceptor was too wide, and I hit the exhaust. So yeah, and the bike has 180 tires in the rear and the typical Supersport rims, so you have a right choice of tires you can put on this machine, which is of course really nice. And as we are currently stuck behind this Mercedes, the thing doesn't like make you suffer so much when you're stuck behind another car. That is of course really good. And we can finally go. The clutch and the gear shifts can be a bit rough and take some time getting used to, but as you see, as soon as you open up the 95 horsepower, it really goes. It really goes. Like, this is not a weak bike. 95 horsepower definitely do the trick very well. You don't have a gear indicator, so you need to be active with your thinking. And you don't have an anti-hopping clutch, so if you fuck up, you fuck up. And also no ABS or traction control to save you in any way. I feel like that's fine, because at the end of the day, this machine has a quite linear power band. Yeah, and if you have it as firstly as a restricted bike and then open it up, or you're already an more experienced rider, and it still delivers plenty of 600cc fun in the twisties. And with the still slightly lean forward ergonomics, you definitely have a good time. And like the foot pegs and the whole everything that you have on the bike still feel like intense enough. I mean, you kind of need to look out, as there's nothing saving you on this machine. But the handling is, I would say, pretty good, definitely. You can feel a bit that it's a upside right suspension, but I don't feel like that does it much of a disservice. Like, it's still quite fine. And the bike still endlessly wants to go as soon as you get the bike revving. Oh! Like, I have to admit, you get most of the 600cc fun with not the painful ergonomics, not the shitty suspension premium that you especially pay as a younger rider. So for you younger riders who want 600cc fun and maybe also want this to tune this down as an A2 bike, yeah, this is really an option, because none of the really good 600s you can get as an A2 bike, except for the Yamaha FZR. But the Yamaha FZR is again so much older and so much sketchier that I would stay away from that, as that was my personal first motorcycle. And even though it's amazing, it's a bit too much. Well, this is also like, you need to be a very well-behaved beginner rider to do this, but it's definitely an option. Yeah, you have to watch out. You can lock up the rear with downshifts. Also, the bike has the typical 600cc sports bike sound when riding as well. The Yamaha FZ6 here, precisely, you feel the vibration coming from the engine through the bike. So you feel it's from 2006, but it's still a really good feeling. Like, you feel this is not a bike from the 90s. I feel like with motorcycles, you really feel a huge improvement between the year 1999 and 2000. After 2000, a lot of stuff has like started to feel a lot more complete machine, not sketchy contraption like. And you definitely get this feeling here as well. Also, as we're currently stuck behind the car again, I really like the dash. As you can see, we have oil, engine warning light, neutral light, high beams, and ignition key light on the circle around the rev meter. And then you have like a Casio clock-ish dash. I don't completely like how they portrayed the RPMs going up. But I mean, we're talking about a quite cheap experience first motorcycle here, where you want 600cc, you want 4-cylinder, you want riding fast and feeling the top end. That's what you want, and that's what the bike delivers. While you're not paying the R6 price, the R6s have gotten quite expensive. You're not paying R6 insurance, and also I feel like 95 horsepower are a lot more tameable on the street. Also, one thing that really well supports my 600 comparison is the gears go on forever. See, like, this is half of the gear. So, wow. On a twisty road, you basically never have to get out of second gear. Like the bike revs forever. You could, like, the whole legal room of using this machine is basically just a second gear. I mean, now I shifted up to third for once, but wow. Oh, 50 kilometers an hour, 30 kilometers an hour, and we're going far away from that. Even though the R6 engine is detuned, you have a lot of power to get you into trouble. Suspension is also quite good, I have to say. Like, here going over these bumps. It's of course a bit of a shame that you cannot adjust the suspension in any way to however heavy you are. So you just have to live with how the suspension basically is, except for the preload in the rear. But all in all, this is a ton of fun. I myself am a 600cc Supersport guy. I had that as my first motorcycle, and I really know the urge that those bikes give you, and this bike really delivers a similar satisfying experience. Being able to just rev the bike out completely, having good handling with this incredibly smooth power delivery, with the good top end, and this bike is all that without too much. It's like right at the line. Like 95 horsepower is basically just as much as you like actually use on the street. I mean, if you use 95 horsepower on the street, you will get into loads of trouble. Like, if you have no disregard for, I don't know, law and order, 95 horsepower is kind of the maximum you can get out of a bike. So I now took the Yamaha FZ6 for a ride, and I have to say I'm quite amazed by it, because what is the point for a proper Supersport if something like this exists? This is crazy satisfying and gives basically most of the 600 thrills with none of the drawbacks.
If you like, you can always track day this thing. You just do a revolve of the front end. For your weight, play with oil, stuff like that, it's fine.
Yeah.
Also, the same is possible for the rear. If you like to go around the track, it's fine. And this is actually a standard fork, so it's a bit easier to service. So you can actually do a lot with this actual platform. And on top of it, you get a really good road bike that you can actually travel to places, because you have this relaxed stance. It's nice. Of course, you can be a hooligan, it's fine.
You still have all the 600 like power. Go at the top, and I mean it's a bit more usable, but still, like, as soon as you open up the throttle and the gears feel endless. And which, with what you said about the suspension is a bit of a drawback in the sense of that it's like not that adjustable. But I have read online that the R6 front end swap is quite a popular one with this.
There are many things you can do to improve this thing,
yeah.
But it's a good basis to start from. And it's actually a good bike to grow into, because it's also affordable. Tire sizes are easy to find. You have basically every major manufacturer has these sizes, and you can pick and choose whatever you like, really.
Yeah.
So from that stance, it's a good bike.
And also, with what I now said, that like the adjustability is lacking a bit, many people who now get into their first 600cc sports bike-ish motorcycle will not touch this stuff. So if you like want to get started into this kind of bike and want to see if it's for you, I think this is a perfect place to start. Also, as you can tune this down to an A2 bike. Of course, then you have a bit of, it's a bit sketchy then, because it doesn't have ABS, doesn't have traction control. But at this price point, some drawbacks need to be made on the used market.
Not having ABS and not having traction it's not something really really sought after for a seasoned rider. Yeah, for new rider, definitely they will help.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, these rider aids don't really save you.
Yeah.
They just help you manage to stay on the road. But actually, whatever saves you is this.
Yeah, that's actually such a good point that we can bring on for many motorcycle reviews in the future. What you just said, yeah, you really need the control of the bike, because at a certain point, all the electronics won't really save you. And all in all, brilliant package, I have to say. Also, a few things to still talk about. This bike is built on a budget by Yamaha, which sadly leads to one small drawback, which is the ignition coils. They use 2 ignition coils for then 2 of the cylinders each, similar to the Yamaha diversion platform. And that is kind of prone to fail, or how is that in your experience?
Well, not really prone to fail, but it has its drawbacks, especially in high RPMs, situations where the engine is moving way too fast. Also, because we're using this old platform, the actual parts are not of the desired quality for an engine with these requirements. Let's say an R6 ignition system is much better.
Okay.
In that case. Even now, if you start it, even though everything is fine, if you run a multimeter, check every connection, it will still run rough. It just doesn't run properly. But that's because it's built to a price point after all.
Yeah. And also, I feel like that's criticism on quite a high level. The bike does well, yes, but like that's basically if you start to really get into the details. And talking about stuff running rough, the transmission felt a bit rough, the first 2 gears, and in general a bit. Yeah.
That's just how it is. I mean, it's not a new bike by any means. This has like 37,000 kilometers on it. Yeah. So first to second is a bit rough, but this is actually characteristic of all FZ6s.
Yeah.
So it's not a big deal. I mean, don't trash first gear. Nobody does it.
Yeah.
You don't need to do it, and especially here in Bulgaria, asphalt quality is not that great. If you ring out first, you're just wheel spinning, nothing else.
Yeah. Also, this bike will be mainly interesting for the used market, and I think it's all in all how it's standing here is such a beautiful deal, because you get quite a lot of bike for your money, you get quite a lot of experience with not a lot of drawbacks. And the bike is now not the prettiest, but that's something you cannot really expect at the price point, and this is an experience first machine. But one thing I do really like, it has the typical dual well, it's a single exhaust, but it has 2 ends underneath the tail. I think that's just beautiful. It's similar to how like round headlights on full fared bikes in the 90s. It's a special 2000s thing, which is pretty cool. Yeah, oh yeah, the bike sounds typical 600-ish. So for anyone desiring that, here's a sound clip of the machine. And all in all, good bike. You can also put a luggage system on it, which I know you guys want to ride big, fast bikes and stuff, but it's really cool if the bike that does all your 600 Supersport stuff can also buy you groceries. So it's kind of the best of all worlds. So after all, if you have been considering buying a Supersport 600, maybe have a look at the Yamaha FZ6. It maybe makes you quite happy. And with that, thank you for watching, and see you guys in the next one. I would gladly appreciate you guys subscribing, and see you soon.
Bye-bye.